Welcome to this episode. I'm Dani Walker. Today we are going to take this vintage wool blazer and upcycle it into a more fitted and embellished one. If you love content like this, please subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And also follow me on social media at Dani Walker. For this upcycle, I decided only to take in the sleeves. I actually liked how oversized the rest of the coat was. So for this, we are going to pull apart all of the seams underneath the armpit of this blazer. So we're just going to seam rip. Now I'm sure there's some really great math equation to figure out all of these measurements, but for me, the rule of thumb is the more that I take out of the sleeve measurement, the further down the side of the coat I am going to seam rip, and the further down the sleeve I am going to seam rip. So since this sleeve was pretty big, that meant that I'm really opening up the side measurement. Now, if you notice for this upcycle, I didn't touch the lining. I really didn't need to do that. There was no point, so I left that untouched, but I always open up the bottom of the blazer so then I can access everything. I turned the sleeve inside out and I pinned along the original seam, and then I'm just marking how much I wanted to take out. I'm making sure that none of this fabric is folded over so that I'm taking out an equal distance along that seam line. Now, I should be doing this with a straight edge. That would be what I would say you should do, but I didn't because I didn't have one handy. So instead, I just took my measuring tape, held that down as best that I could, and then used some chalkboard chalk. I don't even have sewer's chalk. And then what we're gonna do is sew down that line. You're gonna sew all the way down this seam and then just as best as you can meet the cuff. Now we're gonna pull it back right side out. We're gonna check our work. We're gonna make sure that we like it. And I was like, yeah, I think this is pretty good. I really didn't see any puckering or bunching. So I was like, okay, moving on, next step. Now basically we're just going to reassemble our arm. I'm not taking out any extra fabric on the shoulder and certainly not on the sleeve length. So you're just gonna follow the original stitch lines. This is usually pretty easy. If you have to pin this, go ahead, but I do this quite a bit, so I didn't even bother pinning this. Now you're gonna sew down as far as you can. I always like to check my work and make sure that this looks good. Sometimes I try it on. There's a few wrinkles in the fabric and you can see I missed a little spot there. So I went back over that and sewed it, but I knew that this looked pretty good and it's gonna look great when I iron it. So I felt comfortable moving ahead. Now I turned it back inside out again. Now you're just seeing me sew the back side of that shoulder. Now I'm gonna check my work one more time. Here's the back. I really like how that looked and I was pleased, so I went on to close up the side of the coat. Now, since I'm gonna be stitching everything up, I had to open up the lining because I'm gonna turn the coat inside out once again. This takes a little bit of time. It's a little bit tricky, and I know it's a little hard to follow along, but just know the coat is inside out. If you love my channel and want to support it, please screenshot this episode, post it to your Instagram story or feed, and then tag and hashtag me at Dani Walker so I can find it, especially if you try out this upcycle. Now, what I'm doing is taking a look at how all of these pieces are going to join together. It's sort of tricky to make sure everything matches up perfectly. I like to join the last 4 corners together as the very last step. So what's going to happen here, whenever you take out a measurement from your armhole, the arm is getting smaller, and so you're going to need to compensate for that, and you're going to need to take out fabric from the side of your blazer. So I join all of these parts together, and what you're going to see is that one of the sides of the side of your coat, it should be longer than the other. That's okay. You should expect to see that just because you are changing the angle in order to keep it straight so that when you actually wear it, it's still going to be vertical. So don't worry about that. If the fabric looks uneven, you're actually headed in the right direction. I pin all of this and then I go back and I sew up just about all of it. And sometimes I'm able to use a sewing machine to finish this, but other times when the fabric is really thick, I have to go in for the last ½ inch and then I hand stitch that closed. After I closed up the side of the blazer and the underarm, then it was time to add appliques. For this, I cut out my own appliques from a lace trim that I had laying around. I pinned the applique onto the coat to make sure that I liked the placement. Then after I did that, I decided to add a little bit more. The longest part of this project was the applique and hand sewing everything, and that took me about 2 days. I absolutely love this upcycle. I'm super excited about it. Here it is. I really enjoyed this upcycle. I'm so happy with the finished product. It just made this blazer really pop and stand out. I'm obsessed with it, absolutely love it. But of course, I love to be sharing these upcycles with all of you. So if you want to purchase any of my upcycles, you can find them listed on my Instagram at Dani Walker. Aside from that, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and that you hit that notification so you know when new episodes come out. I really appreciate you for watching this one, and I hope that you really enjoyed it.